You are the Father. Hey there, it's Do here, and today I got this book of the day read, and this was a book that was strongly recommended to me by one of my mentors. One of the books he had on his reading list, so um, it was pushed upon like this is definitely a great read. Now, the book is, of course, if you saw the video title, it's called The Selfish Genius by Richard Dawkins. And I went to the public library to get it because I wasn't sure I wanted to keep this one, but I think I might go ahead and purchase it and keep it and use it as a reread one of these days. Richard Dawkins, very well-known evolutionary biologist, so people of faith be aware that he may say some things that go against your belief. And but I always, keep an open mind towards everything, trying to put everything in perspective and how I can use it. That's exactly what I do in these book talks or these book reviews or these book reads, is that I try to take what the author is saying and utilize it for how it can help me improve my life, and therefore I can share that with you. You may read it and get a completely different perspective and improve your life, and you can share that with somebody else. One chapter here, it says, you can see that it says, nice guys finish first. This was a very interesting chapter. When I was getting ready to fall asleep, this chapter woke me up, and if any book can do that, kudos to you. But this chapter talked about how genetically it's not actually the nice guys that finish last. And actually the nice guys finish first. And that was this little game that he played. I'm not gonna give the whole thing away, but it showed that it can pay, and it does pay, to be altruistic. But the book, if I was to give it a good old Southern, summary, saying that we are ultimately all born selfish, which of course is displayed if you have children. All you gotta do is spend a couple of days or hours with them and talking about toddlers, and you'll see the selfishness displayed in great levels. However, this is because we are born selfish, genetically speaking. It is of great importance to teach our children and teach each other altruistic ways. Now, think about this from the spiritual side. For those of you who are of the faith, of the Christian faith or any other faith, I know in the Christian background that man was created upright, but he's found a way to invent witty inventions, as it speaks in the book of Ecclesiastes. But I also know that man was created just like the beasts of the field. However, in order to get to a divine state, as aka the mind of Christ, or to be spiritually a son of God, one has to learn the mind of Christ, which is love, which is giving of themselves, which is preferring to give rather than to receive. So these are the things that make science and the spirituality of the world coincide and speak the same language, regardless of what your faith or belief is. And I always say evolutionary science is also a faith, because in the opening chapter of the book, in the background that he gave, he spoke a very harsh scientific language, and you had to kind of follow it along to get it, especially if you're new to the whole thing. But he said that the genes, our genetic makeup, is a complex system put together, which ultimately has no architect, no builder, in other words, that the genes built themselves, and they came into they evolved into building a machine, which the author called a survival machine. which is the human being, which is the human body. So we are all survival machines. We're all trying to survive. And that's what makes us selfish, because ultimately we will do what it takes, to make ourselves and our family survive. Which, of course, whenever people hear that, it sounds like, your throat before mine, right? So, but at the same time, he goes on and shows that those that actually take care of others, at the same time, minding to their own selfish needs, will outlive or outperform those who are completely following their genetic code of being selfish. Now, I know some people might have read this book and have more of a science background, or have more of what you call an intellectual background than me, and say, I didn't see none of that in the book. And that's why, I said, you might pick up something completely different than what I pick up. And this is just my little, try to keep these videos under 10 minutes. So where am I at? Yeah, so this is my really short review. If you get on my list, I give you the writing of my notes that I took, things that I thought about the book and I put down. And then we also we're not doing them currently, but we will be doing group hangouts where we can actually converse a little bit more, or I can be a little bit more extensive about the book. But these are some of the things that I took right off the cuff. So one of the things that the author wanted to make a distinction is that sexual reproduction, or having children, is not a form of replication, and replication is what the genes want to do. That's their mode of survival. So that can be confusing, because okay, if I don't have children, then how do I replicate? But through different sciences throughout the book, he'll show you that if I could participate genetically in the continuation of life through my brother, who I share 50% genes with, then that acts as a sense of replication for me and my genetic background, my genetic cells. So it's very interesting at how everything breaks down from a science point of view. Like I said, it really opens up some of your understanding to how people are today, just because of the way the genetic makeup is. It's like that book that we did the other day, which is based on the same evolutionary science, why beautiful people have more daughters. So this gives you a little bit more scientific background from one of the top, scientific, authors out there. Dawkins said that the genes are the primary policy makers of the body. So I always think back biblically, like the children of Israel had the tribe of Levi, and the Levites were the priests, kind of the policy makers and the policy holders. But the brain, Dawkins said, is the actual, is the executive. So you're making the immediate decisions now. The genes are making the decisions long in the process. So the brain is the executive. So the brain will act like, if you think biblical, once again, like the tribe of Judah, where this is the executive branch and this is your policy or judicial or legislative branch, which I thought was very interesting, because the brain could fight, with epigenetics, the brain could fight against the policies that the genes have. The genes say, hey, you're gonna, everybody in your family dies at 50. The brain could go out and find a way to live on to 70. And that's a very startling thing, or eye-worthy thing that you should take note of, that your consciousness right now could undo some of the things that once again, there was a battle between children and parents. Parents having to genetically decipher which of the children is best genetically able to continue on the stream. And then there's a battle of the sexes where, as we learned in previous books, like I said, males ultimately want to reproduce and be sure that they leave a copy of their genes into the next generation, and females as well. But the male is never sure that the child in the womb, especially of most mammals or all mammals, the child is his. Only the female will 100% know that the child is hers. Of course, today we got blood tests and things of that nature. If you watch any of those daytime shows by certain people, you know that you are the father, through blood tests. But however, pre those blood tests that can verify these things, the male really doesn't know that that's his child. So that's why he oftentimes will fish around and try to lay as many seeds as possible. Once again, the direct correlation to being a spiritual being, or what we would call a conscious being, elevates you past that animal state. Because anybody that's still behaving according to genetic code, to me, is still in the animal state. They're still trying to do the things that the animals do. So we are supposed to really teach ourselves to become altruistic, become more giving, caring for our brothers and our sisters and people in general. And also that we also need to keep our own selfish desires, not just to ourselves, but we need to express them sometimes, because they're good for us, because that's the way we're programmed. So for instance, you need to have a good example of what I'm trying to say is, you may have a goal of building water wells. I have a friend, a mentor who has a ministry where he's trying to go to African nations and help build water wells for people so that they have fresh water to drink and use the bathroom with and all that kind of stuff. So that's an altruistic goal, but it's important to have selfish goals. So this same man or myself, I could have that desire to go build water wells or build food, or like Steph Curry of the Golden State Warriors, go build malaria tents. So that's a altruistic goal. But my personal goal may be also to drive the new Ferrari, build a house with basketball court in the backyard, domed out, where I can go and play ball at all times or whenever I want. Something that's rather selfish. You think about building a basketball court while people are starving on earth. People will say, well, that's mighty selfish of you, but it's important to still have those goals, because that is part of your genetic makeup that you can use. But also, it's important, I think, that he was trying to say, is we have to teach ourselves how to become more altruistic. I've been using that word this whole video. I think this is in the book. I hope I'm using it in the right term. Wouldn't there be something just like altruistic doesn't mean, being nice and giving and caring for everybody else. No, but that's what you want to be. You want to be altruistic and giving, kind, nice. And you want to teach your children that from a young age, because if not, they are going to heavily lean to the side of being selfish genetically. So that's all for this book talk. I really appreciate you sitting with me in my breaking up talk fashion. I'm working on one of the books we might read is How to Be a Public Speaker. So that's be one of the next books we read. So speaking of books, the next book we're going to read, I don't know. I have a list of books that I want to read, and I kind of reach in there and pick out the one that I like the most. But I share it on the website, and I share the details with people on our list. So sign up for it so you can get that email that has the next 72-hour book read in it. So with that being said, I'll see you later. I'm Duke Daniels. Go to DukeDaniels.com. Check out what I have there. And hopefully these are helping and just giving you some ideas, some things to think about. Maybe some conversation while you're out at the club. Say some nice stuff to the table, and people might think you're intellectual. You might think I'm intellectual, but these are just things to help build our lives and give us some ideas to improve everywhere. So with that, I'll see you later. Peace and blessings.